Hey everyone, this is Six Path Weeb, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we continue our fanfic journey with What If NaruHina Began Much Earlier? Part 2. In this series, we explore an alternate timeline where Naruto and Hinata's bond forms sooner, reshaping key moments, relationships, and the very course of the story. Disclaimer: this content is created purely for entertainment and discussion. I do not own any anime footage used. All rights belong to their respective creators and copyright holders. Let's dive in. Okay class, I am going to hand out scrolls for you to all read about the history of our village. We're going to read and discuss them in class today. Pay attention everyone, we want to make sure we understand how our community grew together, Iruka stated firmly but kindly. Nearly the entire class groaned in unison, seemingly uninterested in a long reading lesson. Only a handful of students did not appear to be fazed by the instructor's words. Naruko, surprisingly, was one of them. The girl had a mischievous spark in her bright blue eyes as she watched Iruka reach into his desk and pull out a collection of scrolls. Iruka walked around the class, handing a scroll to each student. As he passed by the desk of Naruko, Hinata, and Shikamaru, his eyes narrowed slightly. "Shikamaru, wake up, please," he encouraged the boy. Shikamaru pulled his head from the desk and nodded slowly as he reached out for the scroll. Iruka smiled as he gave the boy the scroll, then handed one to his friends. He then moved on to the next table, and Shikamaru immediately rested his head back down. "How tired are you today?" Naruko asked, giggling quietly. "Same as I always am," Shikamaru said with a yawn. "I was watching the clouds move across the sky until very late last night." Naruko shook her head, whispering about her silly friend while Hinata smiled softly to herself. A few more seconds passed until Iruka finished passing out all the scrolls. He then walked back to the front of the classroom, holding his own scroll. "Okay, now open up your scrolls and let's start our lesson," he said, opening his scroll. This prompted the other students to open theirs. "Focus your attention on the first paragraph." Iruka was unable to finish his sentence. A large ball of bright blue paint shot out of the scroll, splashing him in the face. He closed his eyes, dropping the scroll in surprise. "Oh my," he shouted. No one else in the classroom had time to react. Colorful bubbles of paint shot out of each open scroll, spraying the students with various cheerful colors. "What is all of this?" Kiba shouted as he tried to wipe yellow paint from his forehead. "Who thought of this?" Another student commented, looking at the vibrant spots on his shirt. "My hair," Ino gasped, looking at the bright green streaks now decorating her blonde locks. The rest of the class turned into a flurry of excited shouting and laughter. Iruka wiped his eyes as he looked from student to student. His gaze then focused on the only students who were not covered in paint, Hinata, Shikamaru, and Naruko. His eyes narrowed on the blonde girl. "Naruko!" the academy instructor called out. The paint-covered students turned to face the girl. "How did you manage to get these colors into my scrolls? Why did you decide to do this?" "I don't know what you're talking about, Iruka-sensei." "I didn't do this," Naruko said, wearing a very wide grin. "But whoever did it sure has a great sense of art. It looks like a rainbow in here." "Oh, come on, Naruko," Sakura said, orange paint dripping from her chin onto her desk. "A clever surprise like this could only be your work. And your two friends are the only ones who didn't get any paint on them? That is quite a coincidence." Naruko shook her head in response. "I didn't get paint on my face because I didn't open my scroll yet. Maybe the person who did this wanted to surprise me too, and I just haven't triggered the surprise. And now I'm definitely staying away from it." "You didn't open it because you knew what would happen," Ino said, crossing her arms. "Actually, I was just thinking about what I wanted for lunch," Naruko shrugged. "History is nice, but I was distracted by the thought of a warm bowl of noodles." "And your friends both happened to stay distracted too?" Ino asked. "I just didn't see the point in rushing," Shikamaru replied, yawning again. "Opening things takes effort. I was just being a bit slow today. By the time I started to untie the ribbon, I saw the colors hit everyone else," Hinata said softly. "Please do not be upset with Naruko. I am sorry I was not faster." "Naruko, can you prove you didn't do this?" Iruka questioned. "Can you prove I did?" "Because I didn't, so you won't find anything," Naruko retorted playfully. "I would have been a colorful mess too if I had just opened the scroll, right?" "Then do it," the instructor said. "Show us your scroll is just like the others." "No way. I like my outfit just the way it is," the girl laughed. "Fine." The academy instructor sighed as he walked up to Naruko's desk and grabbed her scroll. "We shall see." Iruka, in his haste to prove his point, forgot that he had personally passed the scrolls out. He expected to see a regular history lesson inside. Instead, He was met with a fresh splash of shimmering purple paint that landed right on top of the blue. "Naruko," he gasped. "Well, there's the proof. I would have been purple," Naruko declared, standing up and cheering for her own luck. Class continued from there, with Iruka drawing attention back to the history of the village. Still, the instructor continued to keep his eye on Naruko. While he had no proof, he couldn't help but admire the creativity of the girl who sat at the back of the room, doodling little orange whirls in the margins of her notebook. When class ended, Naruko brought Shikamaru and Hinata to Ichiraku's once more in order to celebrate their successful day. "Oh man, old man Ichiraku, Ayame ne, you should have seen the looks on their faces," Naruko said, her golden pigtails bouncing as she grinned. There were colorful ribbons and sparkles everywhere. "I just know it's gonna take a long time to get everything untangled." Everyone was so surprised, but they couldn't prove it was my idea, so I got away with the surprise. "Good work then." Ayame, the daughter of Tuchi, said, chuckling. "I'm impressed you were able to pull something like that off. I mean, you had to be very clever to surprise your academy instructor too." "Well, in order to pull it off right, I did need some help," she admitted, nudging both Hinata and Shikamaru with her elbows. Hinata looked down slightly, blushing in response, while Shikamaru simply waved his hand in acknowledgement of his part in the fun. "Shikamaru-san." "Hinata-san," Tuchi gasped dramatically, bringing his hands to his face in fake shock. "You both helped? Is Naruko that much of a playful influence on you two?" "Playful influence? Hey!" Naruko puffed out her cheeks. "She's and not." A giggle escaped Hinata's lips. "We just offered tea to help. Naruko-chan managed to find the decorative scrolls yesterday, and I just asked one of my sea clansmen to help us seal some confetti in them." Hinata was still uncertain how she managed to convince her former caretaker, Hyuga Ko, to actually go along with her request. He was normally so serious and followed the rules all the time. She could tell that he found the prank a bit silly, but he went along with it because he saw how happy it made her. She would need to thank him somehow. They actually did the heavy lifting. "I did nothing, unless you count giving Naruko some solid advice and arguments on how to stay out of trouble," Shikamaru said, shrugging his shoulders. "Hey, that helped a ton. I'd probably be busy tidying up the whole academy right now if it wasn't for you," Naruko said, her arm swinging around Shikamaru's shoulder in a friendly gesture. "Thanks a lot." "No need to thank me," Shikamaru said, chuckling. "It was fun. It was interesting." "Well, I got your ramen ready," Tuchi announced as he finished pouring 3 bowls of warm miso ramen. He brought them onto the counter in front of the 3 students. "Enjoy your lunch, you creative troublemakers." Finally, Naruko cheered as she reached for her chopsticks. "Let's eat." Hinata giggled as Naruko happily began eating her favorite meal, while Shikamaru shook his head, whispering something about how much energy she had. The two then turned their attention to their own steaming bowls. A new friend joins the group. As Naruko walked into class the next morning, she noticed some of the students looking at her with confused expressions. Kiba and Ino, in particular, were whispering to each other about the confetti from the day before. The blonde girl grinned back at them and offered a friendly wave as she took her seat next to Hinata and Shikamaru. "People are still wondering about yesterday," she said. "Of course they are," Shikamaru shook his head, smiling to himself. "Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if Kiba tries to challenge you to a race later. Let him try. I'm fast." Naruko crossed her arms confidently. "Hopefully everyone stays friendly," Hinata whispered. Shikamaru opened his mouth to respond, but he stopped as another student walked into the room. A smile developed on his face as he waved. "Sup Choji? How was the wedding?" he asked. Naruko and Hinata turned their heads to see Akimichi Choji walk in, a bag of crunchy snacks in hand. He waved to the Nara boy, a kind smile on his face. "It was nice. The village was beautiful, and my cousin's new family were really kind," he said between bites. "Plus her dad's a great cook. The wedding feast was amazing." Shikamaru nodded his head. "Cool." Choji's eyes moved to Naruko and Hinata. He waved at them. "How's it going, Naruko?" "Hinata? Gee, good. It's nice to see you again, Choji-san," Hinata said, smiling back at him. "Hey Choji, Shikamaru told me you think barbecue is the best food." Naruko noted, leaning forward with a grin. "I just wanted to let you know that ramen is the best food in the whole world." Shikamaru brought the palm of his hand straight to his forehead. "You actually were serious when you said you'd bring that up, Naruko?" The Akimichi blinked in response as he looked at the girl. He was silent for a moment before he started to chuckle, shaking his head. "Ramen's good and all, but trust me, if you had really good barbecue, you'd know why I like it so much," he said as he shared another snack. And if you had the special ramen I know, you'd know what I mean. Naruko defended playfully. What are you doing after class today? I'll show you my favorite spot. I've got nothing planned. Sure, take me wherever you want and I'll try it. And then I'll take you to Yakiniku-Q and show you my favorite place, Choji said. He then held out his bag of snacks to Naruko. Want one? Naruko beamed in response as she reached in and grabbed a chip. Thanks. Choji then wordlessly moved the bag towards Hinata, extending the same kind offer. She bowed her head as she took one of her own. He then walked over to the seat next to Shikamaru and sat down, ready for the day to begin. Uzumaki Naruko felt, for the first time she could remember, that time was going by quickly. Lessons at the academy no longer seemed to drag and she felt herself more invested in what was going on. Days quickly turned to weeks. She greatly enjoyed going to the academy now and spending as much time as she could with Hinata, Shikamaru, and Choji whenever the boys were available. She was having more fun than she could ever remember having. In addition to enjoying her time more, Naruko began to slowly improve in her grades and practical skills at the academy, as did her friends. Iruka began to notice Naruko paying more attention to class and he caught her questioning her classmates whenever she had any questions about the topics of a lesson. Slowly, Naruko began to improve her grades in class to the point where she could no longer be considered the dead last of her class. Naruko was not alone in her improvements. Hinata could be seen as becoming ever so slightly more confident in herself, which translated into better focus in lessons on taijutsu or weapons training. Shikamaru, also, would get encouraged by his friends to participate more in class and try for some of the lessons, allowing him to receive marks fitting his actual skills. These improvements were further amplified by training sessions with Shikamaru's parents. Twice a week, Naruko, Hinata, and Choji were invited over to the Nara clan compound. Shikaku and Yoshino proved to be strict teachers, but they were effective and respectful, only pushing the students in ways that would benefit them. They showed the students the tree walking exercise and worked on improving their chakra control. They also worked to improve their endurance through practice sessions and prolonged tree climbing exercises. Naruko could feel a great difference after all of her time spent with Shikamaru, Hinata, Choji, and the Nara parents. She found herself stronger than ever before, found herself happier, and was looking forward to moving on with her shinobi career now more than ever. She finally had something she had been looking for years: acceptance. Naruko adjusted the goggles on her forehead, grinning as she looked at herself in the mirror. It was only one more week until the academy graduation exam. She was ready to go in, do her best on the exam, and move on with her career as a shinobi with Shikamaru and Hinata by her side. Things really have been going amazing, she told herself. With a nod of her head, she rushed away from the mirror, grabbed her belongings, and headed towards class. Alright everyone, let's begin our review of the material that will be featured in the graduation exam, Iruka spoke as students started to quiet down. We have only 1 week left before the exam, so it is important that you all take this seriously. I'd hate to see even one of you struggle because you slacked off at the last second. Hear that, Shikamaru? Naruko questioned, elbowing her friend. He's calling you out. He can get in line, the Nara mumbled, rolling his eyes. It's weird to think it's almost over, huh? Choji noted, eating from a snack bag. Pretty soon, we'll all be ninja. I know, right? Naruko grinned in response. It's so cool. I'm a little nervous, but I'm excited, Hinata noted, smiling. I'm hoping we end up on the same Jinan team. Same here. Naruko's grin widened. I'd bet that me, Choji, and Ino are going to be a team to recreate that Ino Shikacho trio our dads are famous for, so hopefully you two end up together, Shikamaru added. Naruko was about to respond, but she was interrupted by a cough from Iruka. She turned her attention to the academy instructor, who had a serious look on his face. Well, if everyone is so ready to get out of the academy and move on to discussing Jinan teams, we can move on to the review and hopefully help you all actually pass, he said clearly. The Uzumaki grumbled something softly in response, but stayed quiet as she gave the academy instructor her attention. Iruka spent the first hour going over information about Konoha, its history, and its famous ninja that had been discussed during the years in the academy. When he finally finished, he led the class outside to a field. The academy teacher began to review the academy basic techniques, the substitution, transformation, and clone techniques, and ordered the students to begin practicing on their own. Naruko, Hinata, Shikamaru, and Choji worked together and began practicing their transformation technique. All 4 students were able to transform into identical copies of various academy teachers, with Naruko having the most realistic transformation with her version of Iruka. After they finished with the transformation technique, they started working on the substitution technique. All 4 students were able to replace themselves with any of the nearby logs. 2 for 2. This test is going to be a breeze. Naruko cheered. It's not meant to be hard. It's just about the basic skills needed to be a ninja, which we all clearly qualify for, Shikamaru replied. Anyway, let's get finished with the clone technique so we can be done with this. All 4 students made the necessary hand signs for the technique. A puff of smoke filled the air around them. When the smoke cleared, perfect clones of Shikamaru, Hinata, and Choji appeared. Naruko, however, only created one small, pale figure that could barely be considered a clone. Again? Naruko sighed. Why does this keep happening? I've improved my chakra control and everything. Why can't I make even one proper clone? Maybe you're not using enough chakra? Choji asked. That can't be it, Naruko shook her head. I feel like I'm already using a lot. We can always see, Shikamaru said as he turned to Hinata. Hinata, can't you check with your Byakugan? See if Naruko needs to use more chakra? The Hyuga girl nodded her head in understanding as she activated her special sight. Naruko-chan, could you try the C clone technique once more please? Naruko nodded her head and made the necessary hand sign. Hinata gasped as she watched her friend channel her chakra. A puff of smoke filled the air and, when it dissipated, it revealed another small, unsuccessful clone on the ground. And Naruko-chan, that was so much chakra. Way too much, Hinata shook her head. The amount of chakra her friend used for such a simple technique was surprising. Why you're going to need to use a whole lot less? Naruko raised an eyebrow at her in confusion, but she nodded her head as she wordlessly made the hand sign again. She channeled chakra once more, making sure to limit the amount used. Upon completing her technique, she created another unsuccessful clone on the ground. What gives? She grumbled. Hinata frowned. Still too much. Oh come on. I was hardly using any that time, Naruko said with a hint of frustration as she made the hand signs. Clone technique. Once again, another unsuccessful clone appeared on the ground. She sighed as she made another attempt. She continued to try making clones until Iruka spoke up, informing all the students that it was time for target practice. With a heavy sigh, Naruko walked forward ahead of her friends, trying to get the next lesson over with as quickly as she could so she could get back to practicing her clones. Hinata, Shikamaru, and Choji all looked at her with thoughtful expressions on their faces. It doesn't make sense, though. Most people have problems getting enough chakra. How is it that her problem is that she uses too much? Choji wondered. And Naruko-chan has one of the largest chakra supplies I've ever seen, Hinata admitted, shaking her head. It's even larger than my father's. That's amazing, Choji said in awe. That's going to make her a wonderful ninja later, though. She's never going to have problems with running out of energy. Yeah, but it's a challenge right now, Shikamaru mumbled. The Nara boy knew that, due to the rules, Naruko could face difficulties if she was unable to produce a single clone. He felt that it would be unfair for her to struggle because of a technicality. It doesn't seem right to have trouble just because you have too much energy, he thought. That strength is going to be what helps her most as a ninja one day. Shikaku sighed. He had only just returned from a long day of work with paperwork for the Shinobi Council and a late meeting with the third Hokage. He wanted a few minutes alone in the quiet of his home to rest and reflect. Not even a minute had passed before his peaceful moment was interrupted as Shikamaru ran into the room. Yes? He grumbled as he leaned back in his chair. It is a troublesome situation, I know, but I have to ask about it. We were working on the clone technique, and Hinata, Choji, and I noticed Naruko having problems with it. I was wondering if you knew anything that could help her out, since it would be a shame if she could not graduate because of one difficult lesson, Shikamaru said, let out a soft sigh. Shikaku had an idea what his son was referring to, but needed confirmation. Well, what kind of problems are we talking about? Energy, Shikamaru answered. Hinata checked with her special vision. Naruko has a massive amount of internal energy and is seemingly unable to use the tiny amount needed for a standard illusion. It is like trying to pour a whole waterfall into a tiny teacup. Shikaku nodded slowly, realizing the girl's dilemma. While most students struggled with having enough energy, Naruko had the exact opposite problem. Most people have issues with too little energy. For this girl, the issue is that she is too powerful for the basic version. That will help her out later, but right now it is a bit of a hurdle. I know your mother and I have helped her with her focus. She is getting better at it, but if she has made no improvements with that specific technique yet, she might need a different approach. The man's eyes widened as a solution occurred to him. Wait, she might not be suited for standard illusions, but what about a more solid technique? Shikamaru, invite your friends over for a training session tomorrow. Tell Naruko to come along, I have an idea that will help her out, he told his son. Alright. I can do that, Shikamaru nodded his head. With his concern addressed, Shikamaru walked off, heading to his usual spot to watch the clouds drift by. Shikaku remained in his seat, thinking about Naruko and her vibrant spirit. She had more than enough stamina to pull off something special. The next day came quickly. Shikamaru brought Naruko and Hinata to the training grounds after class. Both Shikaku and his wife, Yoshino, were waiting, their eyes on the three students. Naruko arrived with her usual bright smile, her golden pigtails bouncing as she hopped over the grass. Choji did not feel like coming today? Yoshino asked. No, he was feeling a bit under the weather in class and went home to rest, Shikamaru said. That is a shame. I will stop by with some warm soup for him after we are done here, Yoshino said kindly. She then turned to the students with an energetic spark in her eyes. Today, I will be working with you on your focus and balance. She led Shikamaru and Hinata toward the tall trees at the edge of the clearing. If you can stay balanced on one foot while balancing these wooden blocks, you will be well on your way to mastering your energy. Hinata turned to look at her friend. Shikamaru-kun, your mother is very dedicated. As if reading her mind, Shikamaru shook his head, she certainly keeps us on our toes. The Nara leader watched them go before turning his attention to Naruko. Naruko, can I speak with you for a moment before you join the others? Huh? Naruko blinked, pointing to herself with a curious look. Sure. What is up, Mr. Shikaku? Shikamaru told me you were having trouble with the clone technique, he said gently. Naruko huffed, looking down at her boots. Yeah, I know. It is really frustrating. I try so hard, but it just does not work like the teacher says it should. For the basic version? I am not surprised, Shikaku chuckled. Wait, why? Naruko asked, tilting her head. You have a very large amount of natural energy, Naruko. If you have too much for such a small technique, you are essentially overpowering it every time. It is not that you are failing, it is that the technique is too small for you. Really? She asked, her blue eyes shimmering with hope. Then what am I supposed to do? I have to pass the test to become a great hero. Relax, Naruko, Shikaku said, raising a hand. I said you might not do a basic illusion. That does not mean you cannot graduate. How about you learn a technique that is actually strong enough to handle all that energy you have? Before Naruko could respond, Shikaku performed a series of quick hand movements. With a soft puff of white smoke, a second Shikaku appeared right next to the first one. It was not a blurry image, it looked exactly like him. Both of them smiled at her. Since you have too much energy for simple illusions, we will use your strength for a solid technique that requires a lot of power, Shikaku stated. Are you interested in learning the solid clone technique? The clone asked. Naruko's eyes went wide, and a huge grin broke across her face. No way. Are you serious? That is amazing, Naruko shouted joyfully. I get to learn a super cool move and pass the test? This is the best day ever. Slow down, Naruko. You still have to practice, Shikaku told her with a laugh. I can do it. I am going to be the best student you ever saw. She replied, jumping up and down. Shikaku couldn't help but laugh. Naruko had a way of making everyone around her feel more energetic. Well, if you are ready, let's get to work. I will show you the movements one more time. Watch closely, and then we will practice until you get it right. Naruko took a deep breath, focused her mind, and nodded. All right, let's do this. Shikaku performed the signs again, and the lesson began. An hour had passed since the training began. Naruko was standing with tired, wobbling legs as she panted heavily. You need to take a break soon? Get yourself more energized? Shikaku asked Naruko. Might do you some good. No, I got this. Naruko replied, still breathing heavily. Just give me a moment. As Naruko brought her hands together into the same hand sign, Yoshino walked back to the courtyard. Shikamaru and Hinata followed behind, both breathing deeply from their efforts. How did your training go? Shikaku asked his wife. They're getting better. They lasted a long time on the trees and were able to avoid most of the training markers I threw at them. I was impressed, Yoshino said, grinning. I think next session, we will increase the speed. The challenge will help them stay focused and improve their reflexes. Mom, I would really like it if Naruko and Hinata felt comfortable coming over here again, so let's keep it fun, Shikamaru suggested with a tired smile. You're so dedicated with your tea training. Hinata noted softly. Who tea taught you? My teacher was a very focused woman. Someone who believed in hard work and kindness. It helped shape me and my team into the wonderful teammates we are, Yoshino declared, standing tall with a cheerful chuckle. She then turned her attention to Shikaku. How's your session with Naruko? Is she still working on it? Shadow clone jutsu, Naruko shouted as a poof of sparkling smoke filled the air, only to reveal nothing yet. Ugh. She's making a ton of progress, but it's going to take a little bit more time. Maybe another day of training, Shikaku admitted, rubbing the back of his head. Understandably, since the technique is quite advanced. That's not going to stop me, though, Naruko stated as she brought her hands back to the same hand sign, her blue eyes shining with determination. Shadow clone jutsu. Another poof of bright smoke filled the area around Naruko. As the smoke dissipated, another Naruko appeared. The original Naruko stared at the second, both blinking at each other in surprise. Shikaku blinked in disbelief at the sight. He wondered if she had accomplished it right then just to show she didn't need another day of practice. I did it? Naruko asked. I think you did. The second Naruko repeated. That? Yup, Shikaku spoke up, nodding his head. That's a shadow clone. Naruko immediately gave her new clone a giant high five and a happy hug. She jumped up and down, grinning from ear to ear. I did it. Wow. I can make clones, Naruko shouted joyfully. We did it. One step closer to being the leader of the village. The clone shouted back. Hinata giggled at her friend's excitement while Shikamaru had a bright smirk on his face. The two ran over to the blonde girl and cheered for her. Impressive. Very impressive, Shikamaru said. Why, you're amazing, Naruko, Hinata said, a pink glow developing on her cheeks. Naruko responded to their praise by pulling both of them into a big, warm group hug. Shikamaru laughed as he tried to find some space to breathe, while Hinata felt very happy and a bit shy from the sudden embrace. Naruko is hugging me. She's hugging me. Hinata thought happily, her heart feeling very light. I am so glad we are friends. I need a little more room here. Shikamaru thought playfully. Eventually, the girl let go. Shikamaru immediately started to take deep breaths, pretending to be more exhausted than he actually was. I think I saw a very bright light. Calling me to take a nap, he joked. Oh, hush, Shikamaru. I didn't hug you that tight. Naruko rolled her eyes, laughing. Hinata still seemed to be in a happy daze, inwardly cheering for herself for staying so calm during the group hug. Well, from what I understand, you all deserve a break for a little bit. I know Naruko probably does at least, Shikaku spoke, getting the attention of the students again. Take about a 20 or 30-minute break and head back here. We'll work on some fun focus exercises when you return. The three students nodded their heads in unison before they walked off together, heading toward a shady tree. Shikamaru immediately sat down upon arriving, which caused Naruko to giggle and Hinata to smile warmly. The two then joined the Nara air on the grass as they relaxed, staring up at the fluffy white clouds. Just what we needed, more cloud watchers, Yoshino noted, smiling softly. Our son's hobby is spreading. Perhaps, Shikaku chuckled in response. But it's a peaceful way to spend time. And they are influencing him for the better, too. That's true. They really work well together, you know? The Nara woman told her husband with a proud look. They have a wonderful desire to help each other improve. They would make a fantastic team one day. They share such a strong bond of friendship. The Nara clan head looked at the three children resting under the tree. He remained quiet, watching his son share a peaceful moment with his friends. She has a point, Shikaku thought as he watched them. They really are bringing out the best in each other. They're going to be a great team. The sun shone brightly over the Hidden Leaf Village, casting a warm glow over the academy grounds where students were buzzing with excitement. Inside his office, Hiruzen Sarutobi, the third Hokage, set down his brush and looked out the window. His conversation with Shikaku still lingered in his mind, specifically the mention of a bright, energetic young girl who had been making quite an impression lately. Naruko Uzumaki was hard to miss. With her golden pigtails flying behind her and a smile that could outshine the morning sun, she brought a whirlwind of energy wherever she went. The academy courtyard. Down in the courtyard, Naruko was sitting on a wooden bench, swinging her legs back and forth. She was wearing her favorite orange flight jacket, looking over a scroll with intense focus. Beside her sat Shikamaru, who was watching the clouds, and Hinata, who was quietly adjusting the bandages on her palms. I am going to get it this time, Naruko declared, her blue eyes sparkling with determination. I practiced all afternoon with the training logs. I even helped Shikamaru stay awake for at least 20 minutes of it. Shikamaru let out a lazy but fond huff. It was more like 10 minutes, Naruko. But you were so loud about your goals that I couldn't really find a quiet spot to nap anyway. Hinata offered a small, encouraging smile. You did very well, Naruko. Your focus is getting much stronger. A new perspective. Naruko beamed, her joy radiating to everyone around her. She wasn't just working hard for herself, she wanted to prove that with kindness and persistence, anyone could become a great leader. She often spent her afternoons helping younger students find lost toys or cheering on her classmates during difficult lessons. Back in the office, the Hokage pulled out a new sheet of parchment. He thought about the tradition of the Inoshikacho trio, but he also thought about the importance of a team that inspired one another to be better people. Greater than true strength, Hiruzen whispered to himself, is not just in the techniques we learn, but in the friends who encourage us to grow. Greater than. He picked up his pen and began to redraw the charts. He saw how Naruko's boundless optimism acted as the perfect spark for Shikamaru's brilliant mind, and how Hinata's gentle steadying hand gave Naruko the balance she needed. The big announcement. Later that afternoon, the students gathered in the classroom. The air was thick with anticipation. When the instructor began to read the names, Naruko held her breath, crossing her fingers tightly. Team 7, the instructor announced, Shikamaru Nara, Hinata Hyuga, and Naruko Uzumaki. Naruko jumped up from her seat, her face lighting up with pure delight. She reached out and grabbed her teammates' hands, her pigtails bouncing as she cheered. We did it. We're a team, she exclaimed. Shikamaru smiled, realizing that his days of quiet naps might be over, but something much more exciting was beginning. Hinata nodded bravely, feeling a surge of confidence from her friend's touch. As they walked out into the village together, the Hokage watched them from the balcony. He knew that this team, led by a girl with a heart of gold and a spirit that never gave up, would do wonderful things for the future of the village. The sun set behind the mountains, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, matching the colors of Naruko's jacket as she led her new team toward their first adventure. A golden graduation. Naruko stood in the center of the room, her golden pigtails bouncing as she took a deep, steadying breath. She knew the clone jutsu had been her toughest challenge in the past, but she had practiced until her fingers were sore and her heart was full of hope. She wasn't just doing this for herself anymore, she was doing it for her friends who were waiting outside with smiles and high fives. Here goes nothing. Naruko chirped, her voice bright and determined. She crossed her fingers in a special seal, focusing every bit of her energy. Instead of the usual puff of smoke that resulted in a sleepy-looking clone, the room suddenly filled with a brilliant, warm light. Poof. 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 When the smoke cleared, the examination room was no longer empty. Standing in a perfect circle around Naruko were 7 identical versions of her. Each Naruko wore the same orange jumpsuit, each had the same bright blue eyes, and each one was wearing a confident, sunny grin. Wow, Iruka exclaimed, nearly dropping his pen. Naruko, these aren't just basic clones. They look so solid and full of energy. The clones all spoke in unison, their voices echoing cheerfully, we did it, Iruka-sensei. The other instructors whispered among themselves, nodding in approval as they checked off the final boxes on their clipboards. Mizuki's smirk softened into a look of genuine surprise. He hadn't expected the girl who struggled so much in the past to perform with such flair. Excellent work, Naruko, Iruka said, his voice thick with pride. He reached into his desk and pulled out a clean, blue forehead protector. The metal plate shined under the classroom lights, bearing the swirl symbol of their village. You have shown great improvement, heart, and dedication. It is my honor to grant you this. Naruko's eyes widened, shimmering with happy tears. She walked forward with soft steps, and Iruka gently tied the headband around her forehead. She reached up, touching the cold metal with her fingertips. It felt real. She was finally a ninja. Thank you so much, she cried, giving a little hop of joy. She hurried out of the room, her new headband catching the light. As she pushed open the heavy academy doors, the bright afternoon sun hit her face. Naruko. A voice called out. She looked up to see Shikamaru leaning against a tree, while Choji waved a half-eaten snack in the air. Hinata was standing nearby, her hands tucked shyly behind her back, but her smile was the biggest Naruko had ever seen. I passed, Naruko shouted, pointing to her forehead. We knew you would, Shikamaru said, a rare, genuine smile breaking across his face. Does this mean the ramen is on you? Choji teased, though he already looked ready to head toward the shop. You bet, Naruko laughed, grabbing Hinata's hand and ushering her friends forward. The best bowl in the whole village for the best ninjas in the world. As the sun began to set, casting a beautiful orange glow over the village, a color that matched Naruko's spirit perfectly, the group of friends walked together. They weren't just students anymore, they were a team, ready to face a bright and wonderful future together. How do you imagine Naruko's first official mission with her friends will go? Before any of the teachers could verbally react to the different hand sign, the room filled with a soft, swirling cloud of white smoke. When it cleared, 10 clones of Naruko surrounded the young girl. Each of them stared at the shocked faces of the teachers, wearing a bright, confident grin just like the original. "So, what do you think?" one of the clones asked proudly, her voice full of sunshine. "Shadow clone jutsu? Impossible. You are an academy student. There is no way you could pull that off. I cannot even do that jutsu." One of the academy instructors shouted in disbelief, his eyes wide. "No. They are real," the second instructor said, shaking his head in wonder. "To see a Genin use the shadow clone here. It is truly unbelievable. Naruko, you just went above and beyond what we required for graduation. I cannot think of any student who deserves to graduate more than you right now." Iruka informed the girl happily as he picked up a Konoha forehead protector and tossed it to her. "Congratulations. You are now an official Genin." Naruko caught it with a joyful leap and did not waste a single second putting it on. She carefully replaced her old goggles with the shining forehead protector. She ran her hand over the smooth metal, her finger tracing the Konoha leaf insignia with care. Happy tears developed in her eyes as she looked back at the academy instructors. "I am finally a ninja. Thank you all. Just watch me, you will see me become the greatest leader Konoha has ever seen," Naruko declared, her heart full of hope. Iruka beamed as he watched Naruko rush out of the room. He thought to himself that he would treat her to her favorite ramen soon because he was so incredibly proud of her hard work. Mizuki, likewise, watched Naruko leave the room. He took in a deep breath, trying to hide his surprise. He knew she had been practicing, but he had not expected her to pass with such a difficult move. He watched her go, already thinking of how to talk to her later. "Mizuki, I believe there is one final student waiting. Let her know it is her turn," Iruka requested. "Understood," Mizuki nodded as he walked over to the door. Outside the academy, Shikamaru and Hinata were waiting patiently. Both were wearing their new forehead protectors. Hinata wore hers neatly around her neck, and Shikamaru had his tied around his arm. Most of the other students had already headed home to celebrate with their families, but these two wanted to make sure their friend Naruko was okay. Minutes passed as they waited. Shikamaru leaned against a tree, feeling a bit sleepy, while Hinata watched the door with a hopeful expression. "Hey! Guess who is a Genin now?" The two friends looked up to see Naruko sprinting from the academy doors, her new forehead protector gleaming in the sunlight. "Naruko-chan, that is amazing," Hinata stated as she rushed over to her friend. A bright smile developed on her face. "I am so proud of you. Seriously though, congrats Naruko," Shikamaru said with a friendly smirk. "You are one step closer to your dream." Naruko was grinning from ear to ear. "Thanks. And congrats to you both as well. Are you both still free to have a victory celebration at the ramen shop?" Hinata nodded happily. "I am free. My father said I could have the afternoon to celebrate the exam." "I am good with that too," Shikamaru added. "Awesome. Then let us head over there before." "Naruko, can you wait a second?" The three friends turned around and saw Mizuki walking out of the academy. Naruko told her friends she would be right back and ran over to see what her teacher needed. Mizuki gestured for her to follow him to a quieter spot near the side of the building. "So, what is up, Mizuki-sensei?" Naruko asked curiously. "Well, first off, I wanted to congratulate you on an amazing job, Naruko. Being able to perform the shadow clone jutsu is beyond impressive," Mizuki informed her with a kind smile. "You have a bright future ahead of you." Naruko rubbed the back of her head, feeling a bit shy but very happy. "Hey, thanks a lot, Mizuki-sensei. In fact, you impressed us enough that you were nominated for a special secondary challenge," Mizuki said. "It is a secret task only offered to one student who shows extra talent. If you complete it, you will show everyone just how much you have grown." Naruko's eyes sparkled with excitement. "For real? And you are saying I was chosen? Why me?" "Because you showed such a special spirit today," Mizuki replied. "Everyone saw how hard you worked to learn that new skill. It shows you are ready for something big." "Wow." Naruko shook her head, trying to take it all in. "Well then, what is this secret challenge?" "The secret of the Golden Scroll." "Well, you actually have to agree to participate in it before we can make it official. It's like a small test in itself," Mizuki admitted, patting Naruko on the shoulder. "It's like how you don't always get to pick your chores or missions. When the Hokage has a special task for you, you must be ready. Once you commit to this secret exam, you have to see it through. Do you understand, Naruko?" Naruko nodded her head, her bright blue eyes wide with surprise. She adjusted her goggles, feeling a whirlwind of thoughts spinning in her mind. Mizuki watched her, thinking to himself that she was still the same imaginative, gullible girl she had always been. He felt certain that his plan would go perfectly. Wait a minute, Naruko thought, her mind racing. The only ways to become a chunin are through the grand exams or a special recommendation from the village leader. Plus, why would the teachers pick me for a secret test? I'm usually the one they're scolding for painting the statues. She narrowed her eyes at Mizuki's friendly mask. Something feels very fishy. What are you up to, Mizuki-sensei? Naruko? Are you with me? Mizuki asked, his voice snapping her back to the present. She let out a cheerful laugh, flashing a bright, confident grin. Yeah, I'm great. I'm just so excited I can hardly stand it. I'm going to be the best chunin the village has ever seen. If Mizuki-sensei is trying to play a trick on the village, I have to find out what it is, she told herself. And if pretending to go along with this test is the only way to catch him, then I'll do it. Mizuki beamed at her. Excellent. Now, Naruko, before I tell you the location, let me ask you, what do you know about the Great Scroll of Seals? After their meeting, Naruko didn't waste a second. She gathered her best friends and headed straight for the ramen shop. Over steaming bowls of noodles, she whispered the details of Mizuki's strange request. Mizuki-sensei wants you to take the Scroll of Seals from the Hokage's library for a secret exam? Shikamaru asked, leaning back. Naruko nodded vigorously. That sounds like a big misunderstanding. Or a very bad idea. Exactly, Naruko exclaimed, crossing her arms. The Hokage would never ask a student to take something without permission. I agree, Hinata said softly, her brow furrowed in worry. Mizuki-sensei has been our teacher for a long time, but asking you to do something behind the Hokage's back isn't right. Why would he do such a thing? Shikamaru shrugged. Maybe he's lost his way. The real question is, what's your move, Naruko? Just then, the shop owner, Tucci, placed 3 giant bowls of ramen in front of them. Naruko began to eat with her usual boundless energy. Only after she had finished every last drop of broth did she speak again, her voice determined. I'm going to go straight to the old man Hokage and tell him everything, she declared. And then, I'm going to help show Mizuki-sensei that honesty is the only way for a ninja to grow. But Naruko, Hinata whispered, that sounds like a very big task for just one person. You shouldn't have to handle this all by yourself. She's right, Shikamaru added. Mizuki is a seasoned ninja. Even though we just graduated, he has much more experience. Going alone wouldn't be very wise. Naruko paused, her determined expression softening into a thoughtful frown. I suppose I could ask the Hokage for some help. I just really want to make sure the scroll stays safe. Why don't we help you? Hinata asked bravely. Naruko blinked, looking at Hinata in surprise. Hinata felt a little shy having her friend's full attention, but she didn't look away. She took a steadying breath. Mizuki-sensei might be strong, but we have something he doesn't seem to value. Teamwork, Hinata explained. She placed her hand over Naruko's. Please, Naruko. We are a team now. Let's do this together. Naruko stared at her friend for a long moment before a huge, sunny smile broke across her face. You're right, Hinata. Thank you. With the 3 of us working together, there's nothing we can't handle. You realize we includes me too, right? Shikamaru chimed in, finishing his meal. This whole thing is going to be a lot of work, but I'm not letting my friends walk into a trap without me. Naruko turned to him and smirked. I knew you were a big softy, Shikamaru. I'm glad you're with us. Teamwork is definitely the way to go. We should head to the Hokage Tower immediately, Shikamaru noted, standing up. The sun is starting to set, and we need to make sure the Hokage knows the plan before the meeting time. The 3 young graduates thanked Tucci for the meal and hurried out into the evening air. They walked side by side toward the center of the village, ready to protect their home and prove that true strength comes from honesty and friendship. The secret of the golden light. Mizuki could not hide his grin as he rushed through the forests around Kanahagakure, looking for the meeting point. Everything was going according to plan, and he believed he was one step closer to leaving the village forever. In the end, it really didn't matter if she passed or not, I still convinced her to borrow the scroll. He noted, chuckling to himself. Naruko is still too kind-hearted and trusting. She actually believed my story about a secret makeup exam. Now, to collect my prize. The teacher had a slight concern that Naruko might refuse, but he had relied on her deep desire to become a great ninja and help her village. He was relieved that she still believed his tall tale about earning an early promotion. All that was left to do was meet up with Naruko, take the scroll, and head off on his own. Mizuki continued through the woods until he found the clearing he had described to the girl earlier. After a few minutes of searching, he spotted a flash of bright yellow hair. Naruko was sitting by a large tree, holding a giant scroll and looking quite proud of herself. "Hey! Naruko," Mizuki shouted as he jumped down. Naruko perked up, her blue eyes sparkling with excitement. "You really did it, you found the scroll. I knew you had the determination for this. Hey, what can I say? I'm going to be the best leader this village has ever seen. Believe it. And now I've shown I can handle a big responsibility," Naruko declared with a beaming smile. "That is true, and you're going to be a wonderful leader," Mizuki chuckled, holding out his hand. "Now, hand over the scroll to me. I can check your progress on the lessons now." The young girl shook her head, her grin widening further. "No need for that, sensei. Watch this, shadow clone technique." With a soft puff of harmless white smoke, 3 identical versions of Naruko appeared, standing right behind her and waving cheerfully. "I practiced really hard. The shadow clone technique was right there in the scroll. So technically, I've already mastered a brand new skill. Pretty awesome, right?" Naruko asked. Mizuki blinked, his mind racing. He hadn't expected her to actually learn a complex technique so quickly. He shook his head and extended his hand again. "I see. That is impressive. But I need to take the scroll back to the library now to make sure everything is official." "Sure thing, Mizuki-sensei. I'll walk back to the village with you and we can return it together," Naruko responded, tucking her hair behind her ear. "It's getting late, and I don't want the third Hokage to worry about his favorite scroll being gone too long, you know?" Mizuki's expression soured. He didn't want to go back to the village, he wanted to take the scroll and leave. He realized his trickery wasn't going to work as easily as he hoped. He dropped his friendly act and pointed a finger at her. "Hand the scroll over to me right now," Mizuki commanded. Naruko's smile faded, replaced by a look of confusion. "What's wrong, Mizuki-sensei? Let's just go back to the village together like we planned." "There is no secret exam, Naruko," Mizuki shouted. "I wanted you to bring me that scroll so I could take it away. Now, give it to me, or you'll be in big trouble." To his surprise, Naruko didn't look scared. She stood her ground and held the scroll tight. Suddenly, several small practice weights whistled through the air, landing in the dirt at Mizuki's feet. "Who's there?" Mizuki barked, jumping back. "Just a few friends who don't like seeing people being unkind," Naruko shouted. On cue, Hinata and Shikamaru stepped out from the shadows of the trees. They stood side by side with Naruko, looking brave and ready to support their friend. "So that's how it is," Mizuki muttered. "You didn't come alone. You think you're so special because you have friends? Well, maybe they wouldn't want to be your friends if they knew the truth about you." "The truth?" Shikamaru asked, crossing his arms. "What are you talking about? Ever wonder why some of the older folks in town are so quiet around Naruko?" Mizuki asked with a mean laugh. "There's a secret that was kept from your generation. A law was made years ago to never speak of it. But if you knew what was inside her." "Naruko, don't listen to him," Hinata whispered, reaching out to touch her friend's shoulder. "The law prevents anyone from telling you that you carry the spirit of the great fox," Mizuki exclaimed. "The powerful spirit that once caused trouble for our village. The fourth Hokage couldn't just make it disappear, so he placed its energy inside a brave newborn who could hold that strength. That baby was you, Naruko. That's why people are afraid of your power." Silence fell over the clearing. Hinata and Shikamaru looked at Naruko with wide eyes. Naruko stood perfectly still, the words echoing in her mind. "You have that great energy inside you," Mizuki continued. "That's why you're different. That's why you have so much energy and why you never give up." Naruko looked down at her hands. She had always wondered why she felt so much warmth and strength buzzing inside her. She thought about the way some people looked at her, and suddenly, the puzzle pieces started to fit. I have that much power?" Naruko whispered. Shikamaru looked at his friend. He realized why she had such incredible stamina and why she could make so many clones at once. It wasn't because she was scary, it was because she was incredibly strong. Hinata stepped forward and took Naruko's hand. "It doesn't matter what's inside you, Naruko. What matters is who you are. You are the girl who helps everyone and never quits." "She's right," Shikamaru added, giving a small, supportive nod. "Having a lot of power just means you can do a lot of good. It makes sense now. You're not a monster, you're a hero's daughter who was trusted with a great responsibility." Naruko looked up, her eyes filling with tears of relief. She wasn't alone, and her friends didn't see her as a problem, they saw her as the amazing girl she had always been. Together, the 3 young ninjas stood firm, ready to protect the scroll in their village. The two friends turned their heads toward Naruko and gazed at her for a moment. Any lingering worry or confusion they might have felt vanished the second they looked at her. Naruko-chan. You have faced so many challenges, and you still want to be the leader of our village? You still want to protect everyone and help them? You want to earn their friendship through kindness? Naruko-chan. You are truly wonderful. Hinata felt a surge of admiration. She felt so much pride in her friend, awe at her golden heart and her inner strength. It was a feeling of deep, respectful friendship that she couldn't quite put into words. She has every reason to be upset with the way things have been, but she isn't. Instead, she wants to show everyone how much she cares. Naruko. You really are one of a kind, Shikamaru noted with a thoughtful smile. Naruko, however, didn't take the news the same way her friends did. The girl stood completely still, her heart heavy. Maybe they are right to be afraid of me. Is it my fault? Am I just someone to be avoided? She wondered sadly, her shoulders drooping. Now that the secret is out, I'm sure no one will mind if I stop you right here, Mizuki shouted. He picked up his large rescue tool and prepared to toss it toward the girl. Naruko remained frozen in shock, watching the tool sail through the air toward her. Naruko-chan. Hinata called out. Move, right now, Shikamaru shouted as he focused his energy. Shadow possession technique. Shikamaru's shadow stretched out quickly, connecting with Naruko's. As soon as they were linked, Shikamaru stepped to his right, causing Naruko to move in perfect sync. Her eyes widened as her friend guided her out of harm's way just in time. She was even more surprised when Hinata stepped forward bravely, standing between Naruko and their opponent. What are you doing? Naruko asked, her voice trembling slightly. Before they could answer, Mizuki began to yell. Why are you helping her? Didn't you hear me? She carries a great burden within her. You should stay away from her. Why are you protecting her? You said a powerful spirit was sealed inside her, Shikamaru stated firmly. That doesn't change who she is. She is Naruko, our classmate. She isn't the spirit, she's just the one brave enough to hold it back. Shikamaru. Naruko looked at her friend in awe. You really believe that? If anything, she's a hero. Hinata added, her voice ringing with confidence. She keeps the village safe every single day by carrying that responsibility. Naruko-chan is our protector. Hinata. Naruko's eyes shimmered with tears of joy. Thank you. You and Shikamaru. You're right. I know who I am. How sweet, Mizuki scoffed. But it won't matter. I'll find a way to win this. Immediately, Naruko turned her attention back toward Mizuki. A look of bright determination spread across her face as she gathered her energy. I won't let you hurt my friends, she declared. We stand together. Hinata and Shikamaru shared a warm smile with her. Together, they turned toward Mizuki, ready to protect one another. Whatever. I'll find you all eventually. Mizuki huffed, tossing several small training stars toward the group. Mizuki blinked in surprise when the stars hit their targets. Instead of the three friends, the stars hit three sparkly decoys Naruko had created earlier. In an instant, the decoys vanished into clouds of shimmering mist. The three students were nowhere to be seen. They used a clever switch with the decoys she made while I wasn't looking, Mizuki muttered. Even he had to admit that the quick, creative teamwork was impressive. However, he was still determined to finish his task. It's no use hiding. I'll find you, he shouted. He took a deep breath and tried to use a bright light technique to illuminate the forest, hoping to spot them. Within seconds, a dozen Naruko decoys jumped out from the trees, circling around him in a playful but organized dance. More decoys? Is that all you've got? Mizuki teased, trying to keep track of them all. The decoys moved quickly, distracting him. Mizuki stayed on his guard, trying to tag them so they would disappear. He managed to clear several of them away, but he noticed one of the Narukos was particularly fast and moved with a very graceful, steady style. That must be the real one, he thought. He tried to keep up, but the constant movement was making him very tired. He found it harder and harder to focus his energy. What's going on? Why do I feel so sluggish? I should have plenty of energy left. Mizuki grumbled. He started to feel a bit worried as his strength seemed to fade away. Before he could figure out what was happening, he felt a strange sensation. He suddenly found that he couldn't move his feet at all. He was stuck firmly to the ground, no matter how much he pulled. Caught you. A voice called out from the shadows. The Chonin found his head turning around on its own accord. He saw his shadow mixed with the shadow of one of the clones. At this moment, the clone dropped its transformation, revealing a smirking Shikamaru. You! The traitor exclaimed. Didn't notice me, did you? Or Hinata, I'm guessing? The Nara asked as he turned his head, forcing Mizuki to turn his head as well. They were now facing the girl Mizuki originally thought was the original. This Naruko dropped the transformation and revealed herself as Hinata. You knew that Naruko was skilled with the shadow clone jutsu, so you assumed that all 20 clones of Naruko were simply clones. It never occurred to you that 2 of those clones could have been Hinata and myself under the transformation jutsu. Shikamaru explained the tactic to the confused man. Therefore, you failed to notice that Hinata, under the guise of one of the clones, was using her gentle fist style to gently tap your pressure points, slowing your energy flow with each move. You also never watched the shadows, since I was nowhere to be seen. Because of that, you are caught in my shadow possession jutsu, and your energy is so low that you cannot break free. This can't be happening, Mizuki cried out. You tried to trick me, and then you tried to trick my friends as well, Naruko stated as she walked forward, her remaining clones following close behind. She stood tall with a determined look on her face. It is time for you to see the power of true friendship. The forest was soon filled with the sounds of the clones working together to restrain the traitor. Might have gotten a little carried away? Naruko laughed sheepishly a few minutes later, rubbing the back of her head. Mizuki was sitting against a large oak tree, safely tied up with sturdy ninja wire and completely tuckered out. He would not be going anywhere until the village guards arrived to escort him to a secure room for questioning. You might have, but his plan was stopped, Shikamaru shrugged in response. Right, Hinata nodded her head, feeling relieved that her friend was safe. Silence filled the air for a moment as Hinata and Shikamaru stared at their friend, who seemed as if she was trying to find the right words. After a minute, she finally broke the silence. So, about what Mizuki told us. Naruko started, looking downward at her boots. Naruko, if you think we are going to think any differently of you just because of the Great Spirit, then you are being silly, Shikamaru told the girl honestly. Naruko immediately looked upwards once more. Look, we aren't silly. We know you aren't a monster. You are just the one protecting the village by holding that energy inside. There is a major difference. You are definitely not a bad person. You are a bit of a handful, but you are far too kind to be anything else. Shikamaru is right. And what I said earlier was true as well. You are a hero to Konoha. If anything, Naruko, knowing about the burden you carry only makes me respect you more, Hinata said, a wide smile on her face and a soft glow of admiration in her eyes. Naruko's eyes shimmered as happy tears began to fall. She had finally found out the secret of her past, and it was overwhelming to her. She had been worried about how people saw her, but her 2 friends had cleared all her doubts. Her fears of being rejected by them were gone. Naruko felt a deep sense of peace. All that mattered was that she had 2 friends who she would protect with all her might, 2 friends who knew her story and liked her exactly as she was. Hinata. Shikamaru. Thank you, Naruko shouted joyfully through her tears as she lunged forward and gathered her friends into a big, warm hug. Thank you. Under normal circumstances, Hinata might have been very shy about such a sudden hug. She probably would have hidden her face in her hands. Under normal circumstances, Shikamaru would be complaining that hugs were a lot of work. He would likely sigh about how things were getting troublesome again. These were not normal circumstances, however, the 2 simply returned their friend's hug, giving her a warm and supportive smile. It was a beautiful irony, Mizuki's attempts to divide the group ended up bringing them closer to each other than ever before. The Hokage's observation. Sarutobi Hiruzen smiled as he watched the scene through his crystal ball. After Naruko and her friends had reported Mizuki's suspicious behavior earlier, he had kept a careful eye on the 3. He had felt a bit of concern letting 3 young graduates face a rogue ninja, but he also felt a deep confidence in their potential. Just like he predicted, the children were safe. They were now heading back towards the village, ensuring Mizuki was brought to justice. The children had succeeded in their mission. More than just succeeded, Hiruzen noted with a chuckle. The 3 students demonstrated wonderful teamwork. Hinata and Shikamaru went out of their way to support Naruko, and the 3 were able to outsmart their opponent with a clever strategy. They complemented each other perfectly. The 3rd Hokage was also pleased to see that Hinata and Shikamaru did not treat Naruko differently after the secret was revealed. He was proud that they saw the girl for who she truly was, a brave and kind student of the Leaf. They truly went above any expectations. They were a perfect match, Hiruzen noted with a smile. They really should be a team. Teamwork like that is a rare gift in children so young. It will only grow stronger as they journey together. I cannot separate them. The Hokage sighed. It would mean a bit more paperwork and some changes to the original graduation plans. Nevertheless, he knew one thing for certain: Naruko, Hinata, and Shikamaru belonged on the same team. Now, I just need to find the perfect teacher for them, Hiruzen realized, tapping his chin in thought. He began looking through the list of available instructors. Kakashi was a great choice, but he was already slated for another specialized assignment. Asuma and Kurenai were wonderful, but he wanted a mentor who could balance the unique personalities of all three students at once. A knock sounded on his door. Yes? Hiruzen called out. Hokage, sorry for the late hour. I have just returned from my mission and wanted to deliver my report, said a friendly voice from the other side. The Hokage's eyes widened as a brilliant idea came to mind. A smirk developed on his face. It is perfect. They are the perfect match for this team, Hiruzen chuckled to himself. Well, it is official, I have found their teacher. I can come back in the morning if you prefer, the voice suggested. Actually, please come in, the Hokage said, nodding. I have a very special assignment I would like to discuss with you. The door opened, and a bright-eyed shinobi walked through, ready for a new adventure. Inside the Hokage's office, the air was filled with a sense of wonder. Standing in the center of the room was a young girl with bright, sun-kissed hair tied into two bouncy pigtails. She wore a vibrant orange jacket that matched the energetic sparkle in her blue eyes. The third Hokage, an elderly man with a kind face and a long white beard, sat behind his large wooden desk. He blinked several times, adjusting his hat, as he looked at the girl standing before him. Naruko? He asked softly, his voice full of surprise. That is me, she exclaimed, spinning around in a joyful circle. I woke up feeling as light as a feather and twice as fast. I think today is going to be the best day ever in the Hidden Leaf Village. Naruko had always been known for her spirited personality, but today she seemed to radiate a special kind of kindness. Instead of the usual mischief the villagers expected, she held a small basket filled with hand-painted stones. She had spent her morning decorating them with pictures of swirling clouds and smiling suns. I decided that everyone in the village deserves a little bit of sunshine, Naruko explained, her voice bubbling with excitement. I am going to deliver these to anyone who looks like they need a smile. I want to be the kind of person who makes the whole forest grow taller just by being friendly. The Hokage could not help but smile. He watched as Naruko adjusted her goggles on her forehead, her expression determined and bright. She was not interested in loud noises or trouble, she wanted to turn the village into a giant garden of friendship. Well, Naruko, the Hokage said, leaning forward. I believe that is a wonderful mission. A true leader looks after the happiness of others. Naruko beamed, her pigtails swaying as she nodded. She tucked her basket under her arm and headed toward the door. She had a long list of neighbors to visit, starting with the bakers at the bread shop and ending with the teachers at the academy. As she stepped out onto the balcony, the morning sun caught the golden hue of her hair. She looked out over the rooftops of Konoha, feeling a deep sense of peace. With a cheerful skip, she set off into the streets, ready to share her creativity and warmth with everyone she met. Stay connected. That wraps up today's discussion. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the lore, make sure to hit the like button and share this video with your fellow shinobi. Join the community. For more content on your favorite series and character breakdowns, subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. Thank you for your incredible support. Regards. 6 Path Weeb.